Hi guys, so it's the day after and I'm now filming part 2. Apologies about part 1 just cutting off so abruptly the power went off. So let's get straight to reading paragraph 11. And it starts, inside, imagine the shape and volume of a normal bookstore turned on its side. This place was absurdly narrow and dizzyingly tall. The shelves went all the way up, fading smoothly into the shadows as if they might just go on forever. Shelves were packed so close together it felt like I was standing at the border of a forest, an old Transylvanian forest full of wolves, witches, and dagger-wielding bandits, all waiting just beyond moonlight's reach. There were ladders that clung to the shelves and rolled side to side, stretching up ominously into the gloom. I stuck to the front half of the store where bright midday light pressed in. So although certainly there could be some overlap here, as you know from the question in part 1, the focus is very much on the bookstore itself and what it looks like, rather than Clay's thoughts, feelings, experience, etc. Now, thinking about what the writer is trying to achieve, i.e. the overall effect of the language, hopefully you can see there are several images that almost create this image or idea that this bookstore has this power to, I guess, transport the narrator or Clay to somewhere almost otherworldly, somewhere magical, mystical. We've of course got this almost magical quality which is interwoven throughout the paragraph. The fact that this bookstore goes on forever and ever, almost like a labyrinth, I guess. Then you have the reference to the sort of fairy tale creatures also creating this otherworldly quality, and then the reference to the moonlight's reach, almost as if it's witching hour and all of these creatures and animals are going to come out. So I'm going to start by just putting the overall effect at the top, and I think I'm going to go with the overall effect of the language creates an image of the bookstore. Let's put having the power to transport the narrator to somewhere, let's put otherworldly. And when I film part 3, hopefully tomorrow, that is the sentence starter that I am going to use for my second writer's effect paragraph. So I'm just going to start by highlighting a couple of images, well, a few images that I will then analyze. So let's go with the fact that the bookstore was absurdly narrow and dizzyingly tall. Let's also go with the fact that it fades smoothly. I'm not very good at this, guys. It fades smoothly into the shadows as if they might just go on forever. So going back to this idea that it's almost like this labyrinth of sorts. And the fact that this bookstore seems to transport Clay to the border of a forest. And then of course we have to look at the fact that that forest is full of wolves and witches and dagger-wielding bandits, all waiting. Let's also go with the fact that they are just beyond the moonlight's reach, so this sort of witching hour idea. There were ladders that clung to the shelves. That verb clung, we can certainly say something pertinent about that. Stretching ominously into the gloom. And now I think we are ready to analyse. So let's start by looking at the first quotation, and that is the fact that the bookstore is described as being absurdly narrow and dizzyingly tall. Hello, cat. I mean, on quite a literal level, clearly this bookstore is terribly impractical and very difficult to navigate. Okay, that's sort of one layer of meaning. So going a little bit further with your analysis, you may read this as the bookstore protecting something. Is it protecting some sort of treasure, some sort of valuable book? You may also infer that there seems to be, well, we've discussed there seems to be something almost otherworldly, something magical. Perhaps there is some sort of mystical force. And of course, with that adverb, dizzyingly tall, it very much induces feelings of light-headedness. Then we have the fact that the bookstore, or the bookshelves, fade smoothly into the shadows as if they might go on forever. So certainly, when I read this, it creates an image of some sort of labyrinth, which also creates this sense of wonder and perhaps magic. You could also perhaps comment on the sibilance, smoothly into the shadows. That could also create that kind of magical environment. Now the next quotation, border of a forest, very much linking, I guess, to the overall effect that this bookstore has the power to transport. Perhaps there's this inevitability that you are going to end up getting lost, unable to escape. And in this forest you have all of these, I guess, fairy tale and mythical creatures, wolves and dagger-wielding bandits, witches, very much creating this almost supernatural quality to the bookstore. So let's put supernatural quality. And perhaps also there's this element of danger, entering the unknown. And the fact that these fairy tale mythical creatures are waiting just beyond the moonlight's reach, perhaps this makes you think of the witching hour. Does it also create this almost sinister feeling? You could also mention tone here. The fact that they are waiting, perhaps to some degree, creates a foreboding tone. Then in the last quotation, you've obviously got lots of powerful words you could zoom into. I'm just going to highlight some of them. That is clearly not the highlight at all. You've got that verb clung. You've got that verb stretching. You've got that adverb ominously. And lastly, you have that noun, gloom. Now, obviously, if you've watched my first video, you'll know that the higher clay gets, the darker and more sinister things get. Okay, we've got reference to the gloom in this quotation. There seems to be this idea that the higher you get, the more likely it is that you are not going to be able to escape this darkness. So I'm just going to put inescapable darkness. Could we also say that this gloominess, this darkness, is perhaps symbolic of hell? Maybe. You could also perhaps look at the personification of the ladders clinging to the shelves. Why might they be clinging to the shelves? Okay. Is it that, as we've said before, right up there in the darkness, there is something terribly malevolent or evil lurking? Who knows, guys? Who knows? And there you have it. That is part 2 finished. Hopefully you can see from these 2 videos the kind of process you need to be going through and the kind of things that Cambridge expects students to be able to pick up on and explore well. Clearly, this is another slightly quirky text. I do love it though. I will definitely be using it with my students. iGCSE English language texts are never straightforward. They are never run of the mill. They are always quite exciting. There's lots to them. So I really do recommend having a read of as many past papers as you can and reading the fiction pieces that are in each of the past papers, and you'll get a feel for the type of text that Cambridge often selects. Until next time, guys, bye bye.